All right, let's get started. I have some things I want to share with you this morning. I will not be here next week. Once a year, I take 1 week out of the year every year. I realize I've been gone a little bit with the health issues and the internet issues and those kinds of things. But once a year, I take a handful of teenagers and we go someplace. And the someplace has been the last couple of years, it's been into Appalachia. And I've taken them there. They've been involved in some work in Appalachia with homeless shelters and those kinds of things. And so um, the other thing is that I felt like we had enough time to go to Appalachia, so we're going to go to the inner city in Jackson, Mississippi. So that's where I will be next Friday morning, working with a bunch of teenagers in Jackson, Mississippi. So I take 1 week a year and hang out with a bunch of kids, trying to teach them how to become good adults, not how to live like adults, but how to be good adults as they grow up and go through this transition. And I have kids that I've been taking since they were in middle school who have now graduated from high school. This will be my last trip with them. So been kind of cool. I've enjoyed that. I really have enjoyed that a lot. And so next Friday, that's where I will be. So, I hope none of you are jealous of the fact that I have to eat stacks of pizza and hang out with a bunch of kids I leave on Monday morning with 9 kids in a van, if you can imagine what that's going to be like. And it's one of those, they try to cover up. Just picture this in your mind. They want to stop and eat every 8 minutes, and they're covering up hormones with Axe body spray. That's just picture that image in your head, and you'll understand what I'm going to be spending some time doing. Okay. Always a replay, Mark. I'm not sure how quick they get up, but there will always be a replay. All right. Thank you all for your comments. Just keep that in mind on Monday morning. I guess Eric's probably looking for the nearest McDonald's, so enjoy that. All right, let's get started. Enough of that fun imagery that we've painted in our mind. However, that imagery is really important because in our You Can Make It webinar, we try to make this a very interactive learning experience. So sometimes painting those pictures in our mind can be helpful. Also, when you're creating illustrations, it's important to understand what you're trying to communicate, okay? Yeah, we covered that a couple of times, Robin. And there's not a simple way to do it, and nobody does it in a simple fashion. But I can, if I have an opportunity, I will. I will do my best to try to address that before we get finished. If not, that can be a great topic for upcoming webinars. As many people are new, it's something that we try to cover occasionally. So if I don't get to it today, I'll definitely take a look at that for the very, very near future, okay? Because we want to strive for mastery. Very important that we do that. And then also because the better that you understand the tool, the better you understand your tool, and the better you understand how to use it, and the more focus you put on mastering the tool rather than being attracted to every single shiny object that hits the marketplace, you'll be much better off, and you'll serve your community in a much more powerful way. Okay. Third thing is we're going to talk about the why as important as the how. That's going to be a topic in just a little bit that we'll focus some attention on, okay? I want you to support and encourage each other. That's the reason why it was important for me to turn the chat onto public and not private. So thank you for reminding me of that as we got started, because that makes it possible for you to encourage each other. We definitely want you to do that. And then most of all, we want this to be a fun experience. I've discovered that you're much more creative in a fun environment than you are are in a frustrated environment. So we want to make sure that we keep that in the place where it belongs. Okay. I wrote this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the visual story. I think it's called University. I maybe had called it Academy, but whatever it's called, I wrote this and I thought this was really important. And I'm going to get to it in just a minute. I'm going to take a little focus from that, even though that's actually talking about what's going on in the Visual Storytelling University. I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that to help format what we're going to do here for a few weeks, keeping in mind the fact that this is now modeled after what I call the open Zoom room concept. And that means that your questions are extremely important and will guide and dictate oftentimes the things that we do. Just as I had said earlier, that there's going to be, I'll do my best. And I wrote down the things that had been mentioned, even though they're not on the agenda. We'll do our best to try to include those. If not, we'll include them the next time around. Because I think that it's much more important that we have that free form. I'm sorry. That we have that free form, open kind of communication, the Q&A kind of thing can take place that will help people. Okay. Now I have a problem. Let me see if I can address this. Hold on a second. During that time period, but it was time for me to change. I have no idea why this does this, but whenever I get a phone call for some strange reason, it turns the video on, and I can't ever find the video. So hold on a second. I've got to find the video and shut it off. Be patient with me, please. All right, there we go. I found it. I'm sorry about that. I can never understand why it does that. I can't even figure out where to turn it off at. And so I'm getting these robocalls that are killing me. Okay. Much apology for that. All right, back to this. We kind of modeled after the Ask Me Anything back in the old Periscope days that people would say, you can ask me anything. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to give you the opportunity to be able to ask anything. And then I prefer to do public problem solving rather than to do it privately. I think that solving a problem in public, when somebody has a question, and we have two of them that have already been offered, when somebody has a question, I think solving that problem publicly is a far better way. Sometimes we get input from the other participants, and also that it's amazing. For every one person who asks a question, there'll be 12 people who want to ask the same question. So we kind of model that after. This is the inspiration that I have for these webinars. Okay, let's take a look at some of the things that we saw in the group. People have asked me occasionally, well, why do you cover the stuff that you see in the group? The reason why is because look in the group sometime. I counted 12 questions about Pixabay as though nobody had ever asked the question before. The reason why I cover the stuff that's in the group is because guess what? No, people aren't paying attention to it. So I'm gonna share the good things from the group because that's what we need to do. Gene had posted this picture. This is a great example of what it means to be able to do something incredibly powerful for a client. He shows the original. Facebook cover that they had and the Facebook cover that he gave. But there's something, and I don't know if it's in this comment or if it's in the, I don't know if it's in the post or if it's in the comments, but Gene simply said, I just talked to business owners. That's a really good place to be. I just talk to business owners. And when you just talk to business owners, it's amazing how many opportunities that you have. People ask about how do you monetize Uzine? You talk to people. Just talk to people. So I can't remember whether it was in this, it was a comment that Gene had made, and it may have been on this one or another, but make sure that you go back and take a look at that because this is really cool. Yeah, just being able to share, that tire changing machine doesn't do much for me, but that image on the outside really does. So very, very good example of what we do and how we monetize that. The next thing is that Rose posted this links to remember, and this is really good. Might want to go in there and bookmark those. This will tell you where you find the training at. Somebody asked a question about the replay earlier. This is where the replay. I think there's a replay link in here. There's a link to support. Those are the kind of things that you need to have access to, and she just listed those links so that you would have a place to find them. And the truth is that y'all are really good about sharing them while we're doing business, while we're doing the webinar business. Y'all are good about sharing those links back and forth in response to somebody else's questions. So keep track of those. That'll be helpful to you in the future. The next one is Melody did this. And really interesting how I managed to shoot this picture, this screen cap. I ended up covering up what I wanted to share from Melody, but it's okay because this gives you a chance to see Melody's profile, all right? So good to have you, Sean. Melody talked about she had joined the Visual Academy or university or whatever that's branded as. She joined that, and this was really a cool statement. Your business is nothing but a tool in somebody else's life. And really important to remember that, because you're expected to become the hero of their business, just like every other tool is. Go back to Gene's picture up here. Gene became as valuable to this business, as that tire balancing machine, right? He was a tool, and this is his output. This happens to be how they generate revenue. This is going to be a way for them to generate revenue as well. So pretty cool reminder of that. And I like the fact that Melody grabbed that comment, that quote, and turned it into something that we could see and share with everybody, because I thought that was meaningful. Thank you, Melody. I appreciate that. The next one was Gene had given a little tip here about something. I'm not going to read that to you, but I wanted you to see this. These are the kinds of things that support our group. This is what, when I talked about encouraging one another, this is the kind of thing that you encourage one another with. You share something that can be helpful to them. And thank you, Gene, for sharing that, and also for using the colors that made it easy for it to stand out. Sometimes we see things and they're subtle, and oftentimes I'll exaggerate things on the webinar, so it's easy for people to see that, because you need to be able to identify what the other person's doing. So really good example of the community share and doing cool stuff using Uzine and making it work in a cool way. So yeah, thank you, Gene. I appreciate that. And the last one, this gal, or this person frequently, it's not a gal, this person frequently will post a video of something that they have made using the static tools in Uzine, and then placing them inside of a video editor to create a video from this. This was pretty awesome. It's a great comment about Uzine as well. So I loved this, and I wanted to share it with you today. This is pretty cool about the Best Chicago Rehabs, and I really liked the fact that you can take your static images that you can create in Uzine and use those in a video, which is something that Gene does frequently. Several of us have done that, and we've done how to use some overlays and a whole bunch of other things using Uzine to enhance video. I totally agree, Gene, and thank you for reminding me of that. We need to have a lot more people sharing stuff in the group. Share your stuff in the group. Show us what it is that you're doing. Show us how you do that. Show us the things that you're focusing on. And share with us the comments, and keep the comments that you make back to them positive. But feel free to share those things in the group as often as you can. Now, this is what I wrote for the Academy, and I thought this was pretty important, and I want you to see this. This is the journey that we've gone through at Uzine, and the recognition, first of all, that the tool wasn't enough, and then we introduced a couple of years ago the Magic Design webinar that had to do with the 4 elements of a basic design. All designs have 4 elements in common. Those 4 elements being the background, the product, the logo, and the tagline. Those are 4 things that make a design work. And so this was our next This was our next permeation of recognizing we created a tool. Now we needed to teach people what to do with that tool. And so we did that. We recognized that design by itself was not enough. It's not enough to have an amazing design. The design has to actually result in something. Has to lead to results. People aren't interested in buying design; they're interested in buying results. And yeah, Gene has just mentioned something. I'm going to stop right here and mention what Gene had mentioned before I lose it, and that is, it's a principle. And I almost included it in the slides this morning because I found the visual that I did for it, and I wanted you to get that. And it's a principle I call close the loop. When somebody asks a question and you provide an answer, tell them that you got the answer and it worked or didn't work, or thank them. Do the thing that makes sense in a normal conversation. Don't just throw something out. And some people have thrown some pretty negative crap out. I'm just going to say that right now in the group. And we're kind of critical of the fact that we didn't have a webinar for a couple of weeks. And it's like, dude, seriously, let's not do that kind of stuff, because that doesn't help anybody. You wouldn't do that normal conversation, right? And so you do in a group, and it's a community. You do in the group what would be a normal thing to do in a community, and I call that the principle of closing the loop. If I've asked a question, you answered it, I need to respond back to you so that loop is complete. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, cool. Now, the last thing is that people don't buy design, they buy results. They buy results. The results are what they're looking for. I want my ad to create results for them. I want the Facebook cover, like what Gene had created a while ago. I want that to get results for them. And we try to give results. That's the thing that's important, is that we give them results and that we can demonstrate those results. And we do that, in my opinion, we do that by making things fairly simple. We do that by making things fairly obvious. And we don't overwhelm people, so they buy results. Now, we've spent some time exploring the opportunities that you can get. We talked about simple things like a KISS sticker, and I showed you where you could get those and order those and what you would have to do to create them. We've talked about t-shirts. We've talked about things like this is, instead of having my logo on my t-shirt, I can do a mind map of my business plan. How much more valuable is that than just the logo? Those are the kind we've talked about, those opportunities, because those result in results. And so this is the journey that we're on to help you to discover how to maximize the opportunity that you have. And this, we felt like, was the missing element. Wrote this down the other day. I really like this. Skills wrapped in a sound, customer-centric philosophy. This was the thing that I felt like was the missing element. We needed to have skills, which, you go back over here to the beginning. We taught you how to use the tool. We gave you some elements over here. We realized that design wasn't enough. We had to have some skills. And those skills needed to be wrapped in a sound, customer-centric philosophy. And so I'm going to break this down for you just a little bit. And these are the things that we're going to be sharing in the webinar. All right. And here they are. We'll focus some attention on skills, because some of you are new and you need to know where to find things, and you need to know how something works, and you need to know how do I remove a background. Those are skills that you need to know. And by the way, removing a background is one of the things I get asked for the most. So there's a great opportunity that's there. But skills, those are important, that you have the skills that are necessary. The next thing is that we're going to focus on how do we take those skills, and why do those skills result in creating results for the customer. So we focus some attention on the why rather than the how, because once you understand the why, the how becomes really easy. Okay. And then this, and I want you to get this. This is the sound philosophy. All right. And this one is the most valuable thing that you can have. And if you'll learn to take this to everything that you do, it's amazing what the results will be. And it's this. So what you got? So what you got? not complicated. When I was an insurance agent, okay, we'll go way back in time to when I worked in the insurance industry, and I lived in a state that had put severe restrictions on the products that we could sell. But I'm working for a national company, and I frequently won multiple awards for the fastest growing small business account, the fastest growing agents, the most products sold, the most exceeded plan by more than anyone else. And people would say, "How do you do that in Kansas?" And I said, "It's really simple. I sell what I got. I sell what I got. I don't tell people what I don't have. I don't get frustrated by what I don't have. I sell what I got." Not real good English, but really good philosophy. Does that make sense to everybody? If you learn to apply this to everything, it's kind of that old statement that the grass is greener on the other side. It's green where you water it. That's selling what you got. And if you learn to do that, not be frustrated. We got something going on right now. It's driving me crazy, but I'm not frustrated by it. And I'd give anything if we could take the Pixabay API thing, wave a magic wand, and fix it. But we can't. So we got to find a way around it. And instead, I'm just going to sell what I've got. Which maybe it's time for me to learn how to take better pictures. Maybe the personalization that Stephen mentioned a minute ago, when I get away from stock photos and I start looking at my own, it might be amazing what would make this work. Okay. Thank you, Tyree. Appreciate that. Can't be fretting about what you don't have. What you have to do is focus on what you got. All right. Yeah, the grass is always green where you water it, and so I would put all of my attention in what I had, and that's why we would exceed everybody's expectations, because we were supposed to be limited because they wouldn't let us sell all this stuff. Okay. Alex, that's a really good question. I keep in mind that that's the kind of thing that I typically do in my coaching programs, and you can buy my coaching program for that $3,000. But that's typically what I do. But here's the secret to this, Alex, and this is going to be very important. Okay. Alex has asked this question. What type of design can I sell to generate $3,000 in 1 to 2 days and needed to invest in a marketing program ASAP? All right. The first thing is that if you can't build an audience, a marketing program won't fix the problem. All right. So the first thing that you need to address, the very first thing you need to address is, can I build an audience? And if I can build an audience, can I go to that audience and give them something for that $3,000 value? That's the answer, and you got that one for free. Okay. And yes, Mary, you're right. Whenever you can use your own photos, they're far more powerful. They're far more powerful. I have a secret to tell you about using your own photos. This little guy right here does amazing things for my business. And who is that? He does amazing things for my business. And it didn't cost me anything. I don't need an API to make it work. I don't have to tell him to strike a pose, because he does it all the time. That's powerful. All right. And that's, instead of being frustrated up here, let's do this. Yes, Ray, I have a photo release, which is really important, by the way. Don't be taking pictures of people that you don't have. You don't have a photo release on. Yes, they do. They love to be photographed, and the range of things that he does are just incredible. From totally frustrated looks to totally goofy looks, all of those things are powerful. right? And who ignores the picture of a kid? You just don't do that, right? So instead of being frustrated because we don't have that API fixed and we don't have that's not our fault. That's Pixabay's fault. But whatever happens with that, it might force us to do something that we should have been doing all along, and that is using our own images rather than somebody else's that everybody else has got. We're going to show you how to play with that in just a little bit, but that's going to be pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with him. Kids, babies, and puppies. Yep, absolutely. The next thing is I'm going to talk about some of the things that are on the canvas that actually can be very, very, excuse me. That's the reason why I'm thinking this could be limited today, is because I'm not sure how long this voice is going to last. But we're going to talk about some of the skills that you can use right here. Just going down this right hand menu, there's some amazing things that you can do to make things even better. This, by the way, is my precursor to using the crop tool, and I'll show you that picture when we get to the canvas. Okay, so I have a couple of questions that have been asked. If anybody else has questions, I'll be sharing some tricks and tips, and we'll have those questions. We'll do the best to try to address those. Okay. Pete's asking a good question. I hope you're paying him. That's really kind of a cool idea. It really is. And the fact is that there's more to that story than you know. And I'll share that one of these days. Is one of the things I do in my coaching program, is to share those kinds of things. And so I'll give you some insight into that I think will be helpful at some point in time. What I can share here without sharing, divulging all the stuff I have with my coaching program. So let me change my screen. Give me just a minute to do that, and I'll be right back. So hang on. We're not going away. We're just going to change the screen for a moment. All right. Share a new screen. All right. Can you all see my use on canvas now? Is that what you're seeing? All right. Good. All right, good deal. This is an image. I'm gonna work my way through this. This was the image I started out with my grandson. Okay, but to get to this, I simply cropped it, and so I used my crop tool. Show you the crop tool. I used my crop tool. This is something that I don't think we take enough advantage of, because a while ago the question was asked about complex designs. And sometimes I can just simply crop an image like this, and then I can do something completely different with that image. How many of you use the crop tool all the time? Okay, anytime you click on the image itself, cancel that. Anytime you click on the image itself, this menu will appear over here. When I am off the image, I have to be off the image. When I'm off the image, this menu doesn't appear. But I click right here. This is the crop tool. And so then I just position the crop tool where I want it to be. Now I can do some really cool stuff with this, because I can do a square design. I can do a square shape like that. And then from here, I can do some really cool things. I could have made this a star instead of a square. And people complain that I'm doing enough of making him a star as it is, but I could have easily cropped that as a star design or a star shape. All right, and I have all these other options as well, but you'll have to reposition it as you do. But can you all see that? Is that easy to see? All right, so I can do this, obviously. This should be really obvious to everybody. Okay. I can put him in the middle of a heart. Now, watch what happens when I do this. I can see this little option right here. I can save this to library. And when I crop it, it's going to save it like that. But it also saved it right here. Okay. And so I can actually take that image and put it in a more complex kind of design. Okay. So that crop tool becomes extremely important and something that I don't know that we use it enough, but we could and we should. And the fact that you can save it over here in your library makes it hugely advantageous. This is one of those that I use frequently because this is that image that I had earlier. And now there's some cool stuff I can do with this. And we talk about this every once in a while, but we have a lot of new people, and so we need to do this. If I want to make this image a little bit tighter than that, then I can click over here. I have to make sure I'm in the custom size, but I can actually crop the outside of that image as well. Yes, Sharon, there is a Facebook group to join. We talked about the Facebook group when we first started, but I can resize this image right here. Now notice up here, this is going to give me the dimensions of my image. All right. I really like to have the images that I share on Facebook to be 800 pixels by 800 pixels. Some other suggestions are really popular, but I put my images on Facebook so that they fit well on a phone. And I don't want to have to scroll to see all of the image on a phone. I want to be able to see it immediately. And that 800 by 800 fits perfectly. We've talked about that a couple of times, but for those of you who are new, that's a really important thing to remember. So right up here, I'm going to get my dimensions, okay? And I can pull this over here. And I want to approach a square image here, all right? Yes, Mary, we talked about that a couple of times. I went through and showed a whole bunch of images like that and the differences. And I noticed, and here's where I picked up on it. Okay. You got to remember all these things are related, but I'm trying to, you saw the images that I screen capped from the, uh, that I screen capped from the group earlier, and I had them in the slide presentation. And I noticed that some of those will run off the end of the slide area. And so I started watching and paying attention to them. I started paying attention to them, and I noticed that I wasn't being able to see them on my phone either. So I thought it was really important that we make the images so that they're visible on the phone. All right, and I want to be able to see the comment and the image, and the comment and the image fits fine on the standard iPhone if I have a if I have my images are slightly smaller, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and save this. So by using the custom size here instead of the Facebook newsfeed image, see that goes the other direction. And so I lose out on being able to get that. And let me show you, for those of you who don't know, we have a preview button right here. Let me go ahead and make this as big as I can, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is the background. All right. Sometimes he's got that Dennis the Menace looking scowl. So I appreciate Tyree saying that that's a look of confidence. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to find a way to skip school in kindergarten. That's kind of what that's the look I see. All right, this is, I want you to see this. This is what it looks like in the news feed. Okay, so this is in my news feed image right here. And you see that's more of a rectangle look than it is a square look. And so it's going to make a difference in how it appears on my phone. All right, does that make sense to everybody? All right, next thing that I did here was, and we'll revert this back if we can. The next thing that I did was, did you notice that I set that as the background? All right. I can, on any of these images, and this is something to remember. If I want to make, if I want to make 4 of these exactly the same size, then I can set it. I can set my size to the size that I want. All right. In this case, I'm going to use a custom size. Set my size to the size that I want. Somebody asked this question in a group not too long ago. You set this size to, let's say I want to set the size to 340 by 340 because I'm gonna fill out a 4 quadrant square. All right. So I do that. I'm going to delete the original image from off the canvas, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab this guy, and he fits perfectly there. So let's do something that doesn't fit perfectly. All right. Let's take something that doesn't fit perfectly here. Well, those 2 guys, actually, I took that from a Facebook feed, so they do. Let me find one that doesn't. That does not fit. All right. Do you see that? Somehow my chat jumped all the way to the very beginning, which is not where I want to be. John's a good friend, and it took this amazing picture on the beach, getting ready to go someplace. So I saved this because I was going to do something goofy for John, so he's getting a little free pub right here. But this image does not fit this square that I wanted to use this for. Okay, so what I can do is I can set this as the background. Turn off these off-screen element or off-canvas elements. Now, how does that look? A lot easier and a lot faster. Let's go back and do this again. A lot easier and a lot faster than having to grab the corners of this, pull it, and reposition it, right? If I have a stack of images, and I'll take a couple here, okay? I have a stack of images and I want them all to be this size. For example, if I'm going to use 3 pictures for testimonies on my website, great thing to do for customers. Let me customize the images for your testimonies on your website, and we'll just run out with the iPhone and we'll get the pictures of the 3 people that gave you testimonies. All right. Does that make sense? Y'all see that as a monetization opportunity? All right, so this is what we're going to do. I have 3 pictures, and I'm just going to grab a couple of random pictures. That one happens to be square, but it's not the right size, right? I want them all to be exactly this size right here, 340 by 340. I want them all to be that size because I'm going to use them in the right-hand column on my blog post. All right, and that the 340 fits there, so that's what I want. I want that size right there. Let me see if I can find another image over here. It kind of fits that category. We use Cynthia's picture. She might be on. That one happens to be the right size. So I've identified 3 images here, and I want to make them all exactly the same size. So what I'm going to do is I start with John, and I set John as the background. Boom. Now I download that image. And I have it, right? Y'all see what's happening here? Then the next one happens to be Gina. Gina's not the right size either, so we'll set her as the background. Boom. And now that fits the right size. I download that, and I'm done. Then I grab Cynthia's picture, and that one's the right size, so I download it, and I'm done. Do you notice what else I did? How long did it take me to do that? It took maybe 20 seconds to do that. And I resized 3 images so they were all exactly the same size, right? But did you notice I also stacked them on top of each other? I was downloading them as a JPEG, yes. So let's go over here. In this case, I can do the same thing here. This one happens to be the problem with this one is I don't do anything with them stacked. That's the beauty of it. The picture that I'm downloading is the one that's visible on the canvas. So I've just eliminated having to reposition all those things and all of that. I'm all about saving time. If I can set all 3 of those pictures to be exactly the same size, and I can do that, and I can do that in a matter of 20 seconds or less, rather than taking 3 minutes, it's amazing. It doesn't even replace the previous one. If you'll notice, they're stacked on top of each other. But the only one I'm getting is the one I happen to be using, right? All right. The question is, what are you clicking to do that? All right. Let me show you so you can see it. Let me grab a different image here. All right. This is an old school scanned image from 1973 of yours truly. All right. And if I want to set this as the background, keep in mind, it's going to be highly pixelated because it's a scanned image, it's an old one, blah, blah, blah. No, the file size isn't changed at all. It's just taking the image from the top, right? Okay. So if I want to make this the background, then I go over here with this menu that's open and I click on set as a background. Now I can position this so you got that lovely mug. No, I'm taking when I download this, the image is simply that image right there, even though I have 4 images underneath it or whatever. Saves you tons of time, right? I'm not wanting to stack the 3 images. I don't want to have to go through and delete each one of them and start over again. My goal is not to stack them. My goal is to get them knocked out and move on. It's a huge time saver, and time is money in this business. And if I'm going to do I'm making numbers up, but if I'm going to put 3 images with testimonies on your website, all right, and you give me 3 dorky looking images that are all the wrong size, or I have to go take the 3 images, and you're going to pay me $75 for that, and I can do it in 20 seconds rather than spending 5 minutes. Do you see the advantage of that? Yeah, I don't need them to be in my library. I just need to get them so that I can put them on that person's website. That's all I need. I think we spend too much time saving images as templates. There's no reason to do that. I didn't need any of that. All 3 of those images are here. They just didn't happen to be in the right position. Like take this one, for example. Put this guy right here, okay? Take that image right there. Now, I already have it. I have the image, so I don't need to worry about it, about saving it. I don't need to worry about saving it. Does that make sense? I don't have to worry about saving it. I just need to make it the right size. So I set it as the background. Boom, there we go. Now I've got it. All right. I download that image, and we're done. Moved out of position a little bit, but so there's no reason for me to save that other than to save it to the drive so that I can use it where I want it to go. All right. Now, can you imagine how many places I could use that very image right there? Good question, Mike. Remember this. First of all, I didn't stretch it so that there's not a pixelated issue there. The second thing is that I'm going to be using it in 340 by 340, which is pretty small. All right. So any slight quirking of the size isn't really going to matter very much. The original image here, if I make this 1300 by 1300, and I bring that image in, it's a big image. Okay. It's a big image already. Cynthia's got pixelated because it was a tiny image to begin with. I actually took that image from her profile picture off of Facebook, and it was a screen cap of her profile picture. So it was highly pixelated to begin with. But no, this image is probably 3500 by 4200 because I took that with my phone. All right. But can you see the first of all, if you're going to talk about curiosity, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a picture like this or something that you found on Pixabay? It goes back to my original question earlier. So what you got? Which of the two is going to be more meaningful to my audience? I'm getting no response. Have I gone dead? No, you can't improve pixelated pictures with Usign. You can't do that with any software that can. If you can detect the pixelation, you're in trouble. Yeah, the original is always best. Now, we have a little issue with this guy because he goes about 100 miles an hour, and sometimes the images we get what we can get, but sometimes they're amazing. Okay, some of the images with him are absolutely amazing. From a composition standpoint, because the question was asked if I really wanted to use this about curiosity, I would probably have this one right here. I would probably have this image right here, and I wouldn't mind having one that where I'm below his eye level, and remember we have a couple of weeks dedicated to just perspective, but I wouldn't mind having I would like to see how this image would look if I could see up as to what he's pointing to. All right, this will work, but from a perspective standpoint, I would kind of like to see that the other way. Okay. I don't know anything about Android phones. You just mentioned something that comes from another planet. I have a very specific language that I speak, and everything begins with the letter I. And yes, Mary, that's the answer to your question too. Everything that I do with that thing that has an I in front of it. Yeah, I'm in trouble because this guy's like he's barely 4 feet tall, but he's also 5 years old, and I'm 6'5". So getting to his perspective is sometimes challenging, but it's kind of fun. But here's my point. This makes an incredibly powerful image. First of all, go back to the API question we answered about Pixabay earlier. The other thing is that it's really, really easy for me to knock this out. I just simply go over here, and can you see the set as background? I set that as the background, and boom, there, I've got it. Now I can move it down so that finger is part of the purpose, but that's really, really cool. Okay. Yeah, and I actually have one, and I have a tripod. We talked about tools when we did perspective as well. Now, the other thing that while we're on this topic right here, and let's find out, this is a really good time to find out. We'll see how large this picture really is. Okay, I'm gonna click on the erase the background tool. Let's see if we can erase the background from this. Never know what you're gonna get. Okay. Yeah, that's why I say that you always want to make if your images are small, they're going to pixelate. There's nothing that you can do about that, and you just have to deal with it. So this is a fairly easy picture for me to remove the background from, and so I'm going to do that. Again, this is the reason why you can make money with this, because I've got 6 minutes left. So let's see if we can remove the background from this. Make my brush a little smaller here. You all know how to do that, right? Make your brush smaller, make my brush a little smaller. I'm going to make sure I don't miss that. That's almost the same color as, by the way, that's a T-Rex Grinch on the front of his coat there. And the coat and the hair are pretty close to the same color. So just a little bit of attention here, and let's see what we end up with. And how long did it take me to remove that background? And yeah, I could get much finer detail here, but at this point right here, we're in pretty good shape. So let me save that, make that done. And now I've removed that background. I go over here. Well, where did my image go? This is part of what happens when I run out of resources. Depends on what I want to do with it, Jane, and I may just have to. I may have to. I may have to refresh this. So y'all stick with me while I do that. If I wanted to have a transparent background, then I need to set the background as transparent. I need to set the background as transparent. If I can get this thing to refresh. There we go. And I've lost my image of Tyson. But if I want this to have a transparent background, then I have to select transparent as the background. Okay. Now this is an image overlay on that. And so I set this image here as transparent, and then I save it as a transparency that way. And then the image shows up by itself. Okay. But I have to set this as transparent. Otherwise, even though I removed the background, I have to set it as transparent and then save it as a ping file right here. No, it's not automatically a transparency. And this is a really common thing to do with logos. Like over here, I've got a logo right here. All right. And I would definitely want to save that on a transparent background. The larger the canvas, the smaller the pixel sizes are here. So it does start to look like a white background. You're exactly right. All right, in the 1 minute I have left, I'm gonna see if I can, I think I've addressed at least one of the questions, maybe not both of them, but I think I've addressed at least one of the questions. Yeah, and sometimes that happens, Gene. Thank you for mentioning that. The default is transparent. Sometimes in order to see it, I will turn colored background on so I can see how closely I have cropped. And a few times I've saved that without turning it back to transparent. So then I have to remove the background. All right, anything else? If not, I'm ready to sign off, and we will catch up with you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, not next Friday, but in 2 weeks. In the meantime, y'all have a great weekend. Think about me and that Axe body spray and hormone smell in the van as I'm driving down the road, and I appreciate you sharing your time with me today. So y'all take great care. Have a good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you as soon as possible.